The wait is over. Season 2 of 1923 has officially wrapped, marking the end of another gripping chapter in the ever-expanding Yellowstone universe. But don't exhale just yet. What began as a saga of survival across continents, through years of turmoil, fierce battles, and gut-wrenching losses, has now come to a head. Or has it? As the dust settles and the final credits roll, fans are left with more questions than answers. Is this truly the end of the Dutton story in this era, or just the calm before another storm? The truth is more layered than you might expect, and the key to what's coming next may be hidden in the final moments of Season 2. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the finale, the future of the franchise, and all the twists you might have missed. At the very end of 1923 Season 2, a whirlwind of major developments unfolded. And when I say a few, I actually mean a relentless barrage of plot points that hit us like a freight train in just under 2 hours. The show tried to tie up nearly every loose end across multiple storylines. And to be blunt, it did so in the most rushed, emotionally overloaded way imaginable. Yes, it was dramatic. Yes, the performances were heart-wrenching. Yes, I cried like I hadn't hydrated in days. But here's the thing, an emotional reaction doesn't automatically equal a well-crafted finale. Let's not confuse payoff with closure. Let's get real for a second. Did we really need Spencer to make that long, agonizing journey back to Montana if this was all he was going to do? We were made to believe his return was pivotal, the key to saving the ranch and restoring order to the Dutton legacy. Instead, his big moment of redemption boiled down to killing a few hired guns and putting a bullet in Donald's head. Was that really the grand climax we waited 2 entire seasons for? Seriously, those 5 men could have been dealt with by hiring extra ranch hands or simply beefing up security. As for Donald, Jacob Dutton could have handled that himself if all it took was storming into the guy's house and firing a few rounds like it was the Wild West, which, admittedly, it kind of still is in this universe. And let's not ignore how bizarrely convenient it all was. No legal fallout, no real consequences, no internal conflict, just bang, bang, justice served. Moving on, are we really supposed to buy that? Honestly, it felt like a disservice to the character arcs we've invested in for so long, especially Spencer's. After everything he endured, the shipwrecks, the exile, the heartbreak, it's frustrating to see his role reduced to a glorified gunslinger with little narrative payoff. Maybe it's just me, but something about that resolution didn't sit right. It felt like the show was sprinting to the finish line, tripping over its own epic buildup in the process. If you felt that same uneasy pit in your stomach while watching the credits roll, trust me, you're not alone. Don't get me wrong, I'm not mad at how things ended. I always wanted Spencer to kill Donald. I always wanted him to be the one to save the ranch. But let's be honest, the journey to that final episode should have been so much more than it was. It should have been layered, grueling, emotionally raw, and worthy of the agonizing buildup we endured across 2 seasons. The payoff didn't quite match the emotional investment, and for a show that started with such promise and intensity, the landing felt rushed and underwhelming. The stakes were high, the sacrifices enormous, but the destination wasn't nearly as satisfying as the road that led us there. Still, I want to know what you thought about it. Was the ending everything you hoped for, or did it leave you wanting more? Do you feel as emotionally stranded as Spencer once was in the middle of the ocean? Now let's talk about what really matters here. Spencer is alive. He's alive, hardened, and more complex than ever, and that opens the door for more storytelling. Whether it's a potential 3rd season or even a new prequel spin-off, it's clear Taylor Sheridan isn't done with him yet. The character's resilience alone could carry another series, but make no mistake, Spencer's journey is far from over. And unfortunately, it's shaping up to be a painfully lonely one. Let's address the heartbreak that's still sitting like a lump in all our throats: Alexandra's death. If I asked you to name the single most disappointing, soul-crushing part of the 1923 finale, I'm willing to bet the majority of you would shout her name through clenched teeth and tear-streaked faces. We watched her struggle through every imaginable hardship, surviving storms, betrayals, illnesses, and heartbreak. She loved fiercely, fought bravely, and gave everything she had. And for what? To quietly fade away and be written off in a letter? It's beyond unfair. It's insulting. Alexandra deserved more, so much more. Her arc had all the makings of a classic Yellowstone heroine, a fighter, a survivor, a woman with grit and grace. To see her exit the story like that off-screen and without closure felt like a betrayal, not just to her character, but to the audience that rooted for her every step of the way. After everything she went through, giving up didn't feel like her. It felt like the writers gave up on her. Honestly, my jaw hit the floor. My tears had tears. My brain still refuses to process it. Alexandra's ending wasn't tragic in a poetic way. It was tragic in a careless, avoidable, and deeply unsatisfying way. It's becoming more and more obvious that Taylor Sheridan has a rule in his writing. If it's in the past, it has to end in pain. It's as if happiness has no place in history and hope is a luxury that only exists in the future or not at all. He seems allergic to letting characters walk away intact, especially the ones we love most. Now, I know some of you might disagree with me, and that's totally fair. Debate me in the comments, let's talk about it. But in my heart of hearts, I believe 1923 should have ended with Spencer and Alexandra finally reaching the ranch together. Picture it, the two of them building a life in Montana, raising the next generation of Duttons, weathering storms side by side. That would have been not only emotionally satisfying, it would have been epic, a full circle moment, a beautiful payoff after all the tragedy. Instead, we're left with loose threads, lingering grief, and the sense that the story is half told. It doesn't feel like an ending, it feels like a pause, a cliffhanger masquerading as closure. And honestly, it did both Spencer and Alexandra dirty. Now we're being asked to wait again. Maybe for a third season, maybe for another prequel, maybe for some obscure spin-off we didn't ask for. And truthfully, it's getting exhausting. Every time we get invested, we're left hanging, emotionally gutted and craving resolution. Oh, and just to add a final cherry on top of the chaos, there's now a newborn baby in the mix. A fragile, premature baby with no mother and an 80-year-old Cara Dutton expected to raise it. Really? That's the plan? It's almost as if the writers are daring us to keep watching, just to see how wildly implausible things can get. At this point, it's less of a drama and more of a test of emotional endurance, and frankly, we're all running on empty. They deserve better. Not only does it not make sense for a baby born after only a 6-month pregnancy to survive, but it's also wild to expect an elderly woman who deserves a peaceful retirement to raise him. I had to turn off my brain just to enjoy that entire sequence. The only good thing is that we'll get to watch this baby grow in the upcoming Yellowstone release, which means we'll see Spencer as a father. And yes, despite everything, that idea still makes me excited for the future of the franchise. In the final episode, we learn that Spencer lives until 1969 and dies at Alexandra's grave. He also has a relationship with a widowed woman and has another child with her, though he never marries her. All of this information feels overwhelming and, honestly, initially unnecessary. Why does it matter that she was a widow? Why highlight that Spencer refused to marry her as if that's something admirable, especially after having a child with her? Are we supposed to praise Spencer for mistreating a woman simply because he couldn't move on from his first love? In that case, he shouldn't have gotten involved with anyone else. Am I right? It feels like we're missing a big part of the story here, and it seems like a deliberate choice by Sheridan. He probably knew we would hate this development and question Spencer's behavior. That's why I believe this story will be explored in an upcoming series. Of course, I'm talking about 1944, a show that will explain who the widow was and why Spencer acted the way he did. It will basically serve as a third season of 1923. A lot of fans expect Spencer's child to be connected to Jaime in Yellowstone, since Garrett once told Jaime that the ranch was his birthright. So don't be surprised if there's an entire series focused on how James is actually related to the Duttons, just not in a legitimate way. In other words, get ready for a war between legitimate and illegitimate heirs. Don't worry, I'll make a video explaining all the lore around the Dutton family tree very soon, so stay tuned for that. Now, regarding Elizabeth and Jack after Spencer and Alexandra, they are the #1 couple I feel was treated poorly by Sheridan. In fact, I think they should sue him for such mistreatment. Jack's death was brushed off with almost no emotional response from the Dutton family. And Elizabeth? She was treated so unfairly. I literally screamed at my screen. I know some of you aren't fans of Elizabeth, but let's be fair, this woman did everything she could to survive. She even killed someone for the ranch. What more could she possibly do? And despite all that, Kara didn't even give her a hug at the end. Instead, she dismissed all her efforts and treated her like she was betraying the family. Yes, in a way, Kara was giving her permission to move on with her life after Jack, but her tone was so cold and heartless that I couldn't help but feel incredibly sad for Elizabeth. Kara basically implied that Elizabeth would forget Jack and the ranch in a heartbeat and move on, as if none of it ever happened. She ignored the physical scars Elizabeth bore from the vaccines, the wolf attack on her legs, and her love for Jack. Kara treated Elizabeth like a silly girl when, in reality, she became a woman on that ranch enduring experiences most people couldn't even imagine. Then, just a couple of minutes later, Elsa's voice said that Spencer never forgot Alexandra. So, Spencer can hold on to his love forever, but Elizabeth can't? Make it make sense. The biggest offense, though, was that Kara completely ignored the fact that Elizabeth is pregnant. She didn't say that Jack's child would be. She wasn't welcomed on the ranch, and she didn't acknowledge that the baby is part of the Dutton bloodline. It's crazy to think a family like the Duttons would so easily overlook a child with their own blood. The only explanation is that Sheridan is saving this storyline for the upcoming sequel series, The Madison. We know this show will focus on a family from New York, not the Duttons, who are forced to move to Montana. It seems that this family will be the grandchildren of Elizabeth and Jack. They won't have any direct Dutton ties until now, when they must return to Montana for financial reasons and inheritance matters. As the two branches of the Dutton family finally converge, a sense of anticipation and bittersweet closure fills the air. While I personally appreciate the idea of this long-awaited reunion, I can't help but feel disappointed with how Elizabeth's storyline was handled. She deserved so much better. I'd love to hear your thoughts on her portrayal, so please share in the comments below. Now here's where it gets really exciting. According to Variety, 1923 has officially wrapped up, meaning we won't see a traditional season 3. But don't worry, the journey isn't over. The legacy continues with 1944, where Spencer will undoubtedly play a crucial role in a surprising twist that has fans buzzing. Actor Brandon Sleaner expressed interest in reprising his role, opening up the possibility that Spencer could return with the same compelling presence we've come to love. With 1944 already in production and an early 2026 premiere on the horizon, the future of the Yellowstone universe looks more thrilling than ever. I want to take a moment to sincerely thank each of you for your unwavering support and passionate discussions throughout this wild ride. Your engagement, insights, and genuine love for the series fuel our shared excitement for every twist and turn in the narrative. For more weekly updates, in-depth discussions, and thoughtful analysis on everything Yellowstone, make sure to like, follow, and join our ever-growing community. And while you're here, check out the video on the screen. It's sure to spark even more conversation. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and here's to many more unforgettable moments together.